Week 3 of the fantasy baseball season. Here's a few hitters I looked at off the wire this week. The first hitter, Wilmer Flores of the San Francisco Giants. Early on in the year, I've mentioned him a couple times on the waiver wire video, and surprisingly, he's still out there in tons of fantasy leagues. Is Flores at 68% on the season. He's been on a tear with the power early on. 16 home runs, 19 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 275 average, and a 302 on base. Flores last season only had 4 home runs. This year, changing the approach a little bit in the early going, and we know he's mashed lefties throughout his major league career. The only thing with Flores, I don't know if it's going to keep up, but right now, like I said, 6 home runs amongst the league leaders in the league. That's nothing, obviously, to pass over, and you pick him up off the wire and see if he could keep it going. April 9th versus the Reds, 3 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. April 11th at the Yankees, 0 for 3, an RBI. April 12th at the Yankees, 2 for 4, a homer, 4 RBIs, and April 13th at the Yankees, 0 for 4. So this Giant team opens the series up here tonight at Philadelphia, and that's a good 3-game set, obviously. Philadelphia, another bandbox. Flores is showing great power, and this San Francisco Giant team, one of the best teams in all Major League Baseball as well. So right now, with Flores is showing power, hitting the baseball well, even though I don't think it's going to last all season, especially at this rate. You go out there and pick him up off the wire this week. The next hitter, Victor Scott of the St. Louis Cardinals. So Scott, he's a speedster, one of the top prospects in this Cardinal system. And so far this season, he's off to a good start with the stolen bases, on-base percentage on the year, 1 home run, 7 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 7 runs scored, a 265 average, and a 327 on-base percentage. So Scott right now at the bottom part of the lineup, hitting 7th to the 9th area for the St. Louis Cardinal team. But he's going out there, he's stealing bases, he's scoring runs. And like I said, he's one of their top prospects to come through the system over the last few seasons. April 8th at the Pirates, 2 for 5, a run, 2 RBIs. April 9th at the Pirates, 1 for 5, stolen base. April 11th versus Philly, 0 for 4. April 12th versus Philly, 1 for 3. And April 13th versus the Phillies, 1 for 2. So Scott, he's gotten a hit 4 out of 5 games, is Victor Scott. He's got a lot of speed where I think his potential is anywhere from 30, 40 stolen base range minimum. And right now he's been added in a decent amount of fantasy leagues over the last few weeks, but still out there in 52% of leagues. If he keeps it up at this pace, obviously he's going to be on the 50+% of leagues. Right now my speed, the last chance thrown is to go out there and get him. Next hitter, Jacob Wilson of the Athletics. Jacob Wilson, the top prospect in the system last season, came up, got injured pretty early last year when he got called up, where he only had a cup of coffee in the majors, 92 at-bats. But so far this season, he's hitting everything in sight, but he's not going to help it on base. He swings very early in the count, is Jacob Wilson, but so far it's paying dividends for him on the year. 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 10 runs scored, a 368 average, and a 368 on base percentage. So Wilson, he's not going to show a lot of pop. But like I said, this batting average is pretty crazy where he's swinging at the first pitch, second pitch, most at-bats. But it's getting the job done here for Wilson. April 9th versus the Padres, 1 for 3. April 11th versus the Mets, 1 for 5, a run, a rib. April 12th versus the Mets, 1 for 4 with a run. And April 13th versus the Mets, 0 for 4. So this Athletic team, we know they're going nowhere once again this year. They're most likely going to lose anywhere from 90 to 100 games this season here. But Jacob Wilson, he's going to get the everyday opportunity at the shortstop position, obviously. They're mixed in with some older players and vets as well, some of the younger guys on this A team. But like I said, he was ready to go last season from the minors to the majors, and now with a full off-season and spring training, knowing he was going to be on the Major League roster and the starting shortstop. He's going out there and he's playing good baseball, available in 57% of fantasy leagues with one of the better batting averages in the early going. Next hitter, Gerald Perdomo, Arizona Diamondbacks. Perdomo, I mentioned him as an ad last week. Perdomo, he's got a top 10 ranking this season in head-to-head categories league is Perdomo, and he's only available now in 59% of fantasy leagues, where last week he was available in over 70% of leagues on the year. 2 home runs, 13 RBIs, 8 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 340 average, and a 429 on base percentage for Perdomo. So Perdomo, he made the All-Star team a few years ago. He's moved up the lineup for this Arizona Diamondback team, where earlier in the year he was batting lower. Now the last couple weeks here, he's been first to second in the lineup. April 9th versus Baltimore, 3 for 4, a homer, an RBI, 2 runs scored. April 11th versus Milwaukee, 1 for 3. April 12th versus Milwaukee, 1 for 2 with a run. And April 13th versus Milwaukee, 0 for 1. So Perdomo's getting on base. He's showing some power. He's scoring runs. And this Diamondback team, is playing good baseball for the most part, winning 4 out of 5 in Perdomo. That everyday shortstop finally, where one of their top prospects, Jordan Lawler, he's just been banged up over the last couple seasons, and he just hasn't been ready as well to come up in the major leagues. So Perdomo, he's made the most out of it once again this season. Like I said, he was batting lower in the order the first week and a half of the year. Now, towards the top of the order, and it's paying big dividends for this Diamondback team and for fantasy owners. It's definitely an ad this week. The next hitter, Michael Busch of the Chicago Cubs. So Michael Busch, he was off to a good start last season, and then he fizzled out. And once again this year, off to a nice start is Busch. He's available in 74% of leagues on the year. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a stolen base, a .300 average, and a .386 on-base percentage for Michael Busch. So the only thing with Busch, he don't verse lefties, but he was a former top prospect in the Dodgers system, and they pretty much gave him up for nothing a couple off seasons ago. So the last few games for Busch: April 9th versus Texas, 1 for 4, an RBI. April 11th at the Dodgers, 0 for 3. April 12th at the Dodgers, 4 for 6, a homer, 3 RBIs, 4 runs scored in that 16-0 victory. And April 13th at the Dodgers, 2 for 4 with a homer and an RBI. He's starting to get the powers, Busch. We saw, like I said, early last season, he had a lot of home runs in the first month of the year. Then he fizzled out a little, but still finished with 21 and 65. So with Kyle Tucker in this lineup, it's changed the whole dynamic for this Cub team. A lot of players are producing. They're scoring a lot of runs, like I said. And now Michael Busch, once again, off to a nice start early on in the season. And then this week, the next hitter, Sal Frelick of the Milwaukee Brewers. Frelick, we've heard about him over the last few seasons being a nice prospect in the system, but it hasn't panned out yet. But so far this year, we're off to a good start. No home runs, 5 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 8 runs scored, a .321 average, and a .400 on base. A Frelick last season, he didn't show power at all. 2 home runs and 475 at-bats. But stolen bases, he could bring fantasy owners. Runs scored, he could bring fantasy owners. And even his strikeout rate's not going to be high. Only striking out 78 times in 475 at-bats was Frelick last season. So the last few games, April 9th at the Rockies, 1 for 5, 2 runs a bag. April 11th at the Diamondbacks, 1 for 5, RBI, a stolen base. And April 12th at Arizona, 0 for 3 with a run. April 13th at Arizona, 1 for 3. So Frelick, he's getting on base, making some things happen, stealing bases. He's more of a deeper league ad, I believe, is Sal Frelick. But like I said, he was a former top prospect a couple years ago for this Brewer team. Last season, it was a good, obviously, sample size to get at-bats in. And now, in his second season, I think Frelick could go out there and possibly show his full potential for this Brewer team. And we know they need that offense with, obviously, Willy Adames leaving in the offseason. And so far, their offense, it's been hit or miss in the early going. Next hitter is Jorge Polanco. Seattle Mariners, Jorge Polanco available in 80% of fantasy leagues. And he's off to a nice start in the early going. 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a stolen base, a .382 average, and a .389 on base percentage. So Polanco, we know he was a decent hitter for a couple years with the Minnesota Twins, but last season was a down year, 16 and 45, only a .213 average. And I think he could fizzle out as the year goes on, and obviously he's not going to bat over .350 the whole season as Polanco. But like I said, he was a good hitter with the Minnesota Twins. Last year was a down year for him, and this year he's bounced back with a vengeance and playing well. April 9th versus Houston, 0 for 3. April 11th versus Texas, 3 for 4, a homer and RBI in that one. 12th versus Texas, 0 for 3 and RBI. And April 13th versus Texas, 1 for 3 with a run. So Polanco, he's getting on base, making things happen. Second and third base, he qualifies as well, which is good versatility. And like I said, out there in 80% of fantasy leagues, I think he's going to help fantasy owners more in category leagues is Polanco than in points leagues. So right now, well, he's off to a hot start. I'm playing well, batting early in this lineup for the Seattle Mariners team. Polanco is definitely an ad this week. Next hitter, Trent Grisham of the New York Yankees. So this Yankee team obviously lost Juan Soto in the offseason free agency to the New York Mets, and obviously brought in guys like Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, Ben Rice getting an opportunity now for this Yankee team on the Major League roster, and he's playing good baseball. And Trent Grisham, remember as well, was part of that Soto deal going from the Padres to the Yankees a couple off seasons ago. On the year for Grisham, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a .344 average, and a .417 on base percentage. I know it's only 32 at-bats in the early going for Grisham, but he's had some pop throughout his career. And obviously with the short porch and right field in Yankee Stadium, he can make the most of it. And also, we know he's one of the better defensive center fielders in the league. April 7th at Detroit, 1 for 4 run. April 8th at the Tigers, 0 for 3. April 9th, he pinched it in that one at Detroit, 0 for 1. April 11th versus the Giants, 0 for 2. And April 12th, he sat out in that game. So the thing with Grisham, obviously, he's not going to verse lefties. This Yankee team, they have a couple different rotations in that outfield. Some big games, Bellinger play center. Then obviously Grisham some center, Jason Dominguez in left. And it's going to be a logjam, obviously, once Giancarlo Stanton comes back and obviously takes over that DH role. But right now, Grisham, so far in the early going in a small sample size, he's been playing well as Grisham. The only thing, like I said, versus left-handed pitching, we're not going to see him out there much. But if you need a hitter in deeper leagues, I think Grisham's worth a shot, and he's available in 81% of fantasy leagues. Next hitter is Josh Smith of the Texas Rangers, out there in tons of leagues at 84%. Very versatile, qualifying at third, short, and outfield in fantasy. And on the year, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 8 runs scored at 353 average, and a 450 on base percentage. He's getting on base almost 50% of the time in the early going is Josh Smith. I know he's not an everyday player, but still going to give you 5-6 games a week he's going to play, and they play him all over the diamond, obviously, is this Texas Ranger team. And last season, I thought he showed some flash and had some okay numbers, 13 and 62 with 11 bags and a 258 average. And so far this season, playing even better and got that average up. April 8th at the Cubs, 1 for 3, 2 runs. April 11th at the Mariners, 2 for 4 run. April 12th at the Mariners, 2 for 4 and RBI. And April 13th at the Mariners, 1 for 4. So 2 out of 4 games. He's had multiple hit games. Is Josh Smith. Like I said, good versatility for fantasy owners, third short outfield. And the only thing you want to see a little bit more pop, and obviously as well, he's not going to hit over 350 all season long. But right now, while he's playing great baseball and his versatility can help fantasy owners, he's definitely named this week. And the final hitter, I looked at off the wires, Jonathan Aranda of the Tampa Bay Rays. So another player coming out of nowhere for this Tampa Bay Rays team. I know he was a decent ranked prospect in this system over the last couple of years, but so far he's off to a red hot start. 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 378 average, and a 455 on base percentage for Aranda in 38 at bats on the season, out there in 88% of fantasy leagues. And we know this Tampa Bay Rays team, they need offense, and they need it in a hurry if they want to try to compete and obviously be a big underdog story once again in the AL East, even though they had a fire sale most of last season at the deadline and even in the offseason as well. April 10th versus the Angels, 1 for 4 in RBI. April 11th versus the Braves, 0 for 4. April 12th versus the Braves, 3 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs. And April 13th versus the Braves, pinched it in that one, 1 for 1 with a run and an RBI. So Aranda, he's got some decent versatility, first and second. He qualifies at, like I said, he was a decent ranked prospect over the last few seasons in the system is Aranda. But I believe he can help fantasy owners and this Ray team, and he's another one of those guys that comes out of nowhere and produces and can put up numbers. So that's a few hitters I look to add for week 3 of the fantasy baseball season.